The movie is set in Moscow, and it revolves around a Russian schoolteacher called Slava Koletilov. The scene opens with Slava walking the busy streets of Moscow while on a call with a local publisher. It turns out that Slava arrived here to publish his novel. Unfortunately, the publisher calls his work garbage and refuses to publish the novel. This makes Slava sad, and as a result, he doesn't pay attention to his surroundings as he crosses the road. All of a sudden, a car hits him, knocking him unconscious. As soon as he wakes up, Slava is greeted by a beautiful woman. It turns out the woman's name is Nadia, and she is the driver of the car which hit Slava. She's with her fiancé, Danya. While she helps Slava up and comforts him, police arrive at the scene. Scared, Danya immediately puts the blame on Nadia, saying she was the one driving. Fortunately, Slava, who has been mesmerized by her beauty, lies to the police officer that it was his own fault that led to the accident. After the officer leaves, fully convinced, Slava and Nadia finally introduce each other. He advises her not to marry Danya as he's a selfish individual. Nadia ignores his words and heads back into the car. But surprisingly, she grabs her bag and leaves her fiancé behind. She then approaches Slava and suggests that they go to a hospital to treat his wounds. In the next scene, Slava gets a huge cast on his leg, after which they leave the hospital. The two then continue to enjoy one another's company, and over the course of 1 week, they travel throughout Moscow and develop feelings for each other. The movie then skips to 1 week later, where Slava suddenly receives a call from his school director. It's revealed that he's from a small town called Palchiki and works there as a teacher. The director tells him to return as soon as possible, and Slava reluctantly obliges. However, before he goes, Slava pulls out a makeshift ring and proposes to Nadia. Without hesitation, she takes off her previous ring and accepts his proposal. In this way, they become happily engaged. The scene then cuts to 1 day before the wedding, where Nadia is trying on her wedding dress with the company of her mom. Meanwhile, Slava is back home and is teaching a class. As soon as the bell rings, Slava heads to the director's office to get his resignation letter signed by her. However, she refuses as the school is desperate for teachers. But this is not enough to stop our protagonist as he leaves without the letter. He goes straight to the station, where his train for Moscow is set to depart in 30 minutes. In the next scene, Slava arrives at the train station and finds an event being held. It turns out that a national Russian children's football tournament is going to be held for the next few days in Palchiki. Disregarding this, Slava tries to get to his train, but a railway officer stops him, saying the mayor is about to give a speech. To his surprise, the school director is also present and she calls for Slava. However, he avoids her and continues his way towards the train. Meanwhile, the mayor is interrupted by a man who turns out to be a sports committee examiner. It's revealed that the Palchiki team has players who are over the maximum age for the tournament, which is 12 years. Hence, as soon as the examiner approaches the team, their coach flees. Meanwhile, Slava reaches the train and ends up right behind the Palchiki team. Consequently, the sports examiner mistakes Slava for the team coach and orders him to make a new football team by tomorrow for the tournament. Slava is confused and shows his train ticket and passport explaining that he's not the coach and has a wedding tomorrow. He even calls the school director to confirm his claims, but she shockingly lies by saying that he is the coach. So the examiner tears his ticket and confiscates his passport, informing him that he will get it after the tournament. This devastates Slava, as now he has no way of traveling to Moscow. Shortly after, a man called Hilbustin advises Slava that in order to get his passport quickly, he must disqualify his team by making them lose. The scene then cuts to Slava inside the train station, where a boy named Kara pickpockets his phone and attempts to make a run for it. However, Slava quickly gets it back and sends the kid off. Immediately after, Slava is approached by a police officer who is in search of a 12-year-old pickpocket. Realizing that Kara is the appropriate age for the team, he sends the officer in the wrong direction. He then finds the boy and convinces him to play football under him. After a while, Slava asks Kara if he has any other friends his age. The latter says yes and leads Slava to meet his friend Derek. It turns out Derek is afraid of other people, making him not suitable for the team. Later, Kara introduces Slava to his other delinquent friends and finally gathers all 11 players for the team. All of them are homeless and have no parents. Following this, Slava finally calls Nadia and tells her that he'll not make it to Moscow on the day of the wedding. As for the reason, he lies that he's caught a dangerous bacteria and is in quarantine. Nadia is understandably shocked, but nonetheless, she understands Slava's condition. She then improvises and decides to have the wedding party first, so that her preparations don't go in vain. The next day, the game between Palchiki and a team called Rostov is underway. Rostov dominates the first half of the game, scoring 2 goals. At halftime, Slava looks relieved, but Kara motivates everyone to play better and win the game. Surprisingly, his pep talk works, and right from the start of the second half, they play amazingly. The team scores goal after goal and ultimately wins the game. The sports examiner, mayor, and the school director all come to congratulate Slava, who is enraged that he has to stay for another match that's going to take place the next day. Later, he phones Nadia and lies about getting in an accident, making her concerned for his safety. Before hanging up, he informs Nadia to again postpone the wedding by an additional day. This frustrates the poor woman, but she reluctantly obliges. In the next scene, we get to know that Hilbuston is actually a coach of one of the playing teams, and so Slava approaches him for other ideas to lose the match. Hilbuston suggests he buy laxatives and give it to Kara, as he is the star player of the team. The next day, Slava buys the laxative and mixes it inside a water bottle for Kara. The unsuspecting boy chugs it down, assuming that it's an energy drink. However, the laxative effect doesn't kick in, and the team plays surprisingly well. Seeing that his plan didn't work, Slava increases the dosage and calls Kara for another bottle of the energy drink. This time, the laxative does work, so Kara abandons the game and rushes to a nearby toilet. Meanwhile, at the wedding party, Danya shows up as a guest and decides to stay. Back in Palchiki, Slava realizes that his goalkeeper, Kopchik, is scaring the opposing players, so after the first half, he turns to Hilbuston for help. The latter says that he should replace the goalkeeper with someone who's afraid of other people, and Slava immediately thinks of Derek. So he heads to where Derek lives and lures him out with cans of milk. He then replaces Kopchik with Derek, and this results in Slava's team conceding a goal. But Derek's teammates manage to teach him how to stop the ball, which results in Derek drawing out his true potential as a professional goalkeeper. In the second half, both teams' scores are tied, and with only a minute left on the clock, Palchiki is awarded with a free kick. Slava orders a player with weak and crossed eyes to take the kick, confident that he'll miss it. However, Kara, who is aware of the boy's disability, comes out of the toilet and tells the crossed-eyed player to aim at him. The plan works, and the boy ends up curving the ball into the net, winning the match for their team. After the game, the sports examiner is thrilled, so he hands Slava's passport over to the school director and orders her to not let Slava go to Moscow before the tournament finals. Meanwhile, Slava calls Nadia and becomes furious after finding out that Danya is present at the wedding party. He tells her that he will not be present for yet another day. Following this, he heads to Hilbuston's private boat. There, Slava expresses his problems to Hilbuston and his German friend George. They advise him to physically drain his players by training them extensively, making their bodies sore. George then informs Slava that many boxes of wine are to be unloaded from the boat, and they need someone to do it. Hearing this, Slava gets an idea. He brings all the kids to unload those heavy boxes. Later on, as everyone starts to get tired, a fight breaks out between the kids. This makes Derek scared, and he escapes the scene. The next day, as Derek arrives late at the game, Slava lures him inside a room and locks him in after witnessing his goalkeeping skills the previous day. Soon, the match begins and every player of the Palchiki team is worn out and tired. Hence, the team concedes 3 goals in the first half, crushing their hopes of winning. Later, as Slava drinks juice from a nearby stall, he hears someone crying in the distance and goes to check it out. It is none other than Kara, who has lost all hope in winning. It's then revealed that his true intention of winning the championship is to impress his parents, hoping they'll take him back. This makes Slava realize that what he's doing is wrong, so he quickly goes to free Derek. On the way, Slava bumps into Hilbuston and tells him that now they will play to win. This enrages the rival coach, and he threatens to expose Slava if he doesn't lose. However, our protagonist completely ignores Hilbuston and frees Derek. In the dressing room, Slava finds the kids changing into their normal clothes, ready to forfeit the game. As a result, he finally confesses everything that he's done. This enrages the kids so much that they all beat up Slava and knock him unconscious. When he wakes up, he's greeted by the school director, who hands him his passport and apologizes for everything. Kara then calls both of them to watch the match, as it turns out they've not backed out yet and are going to play. So Slava heads to the football pitch, leaving his phone inside the changing room with the school director. Meanwhile, Danya steals Nadia's phone to privately call Slava to talk to him. However, once he calls, the school director picks up and Danya is shocked to hear a woman's voice. He quickly hangs up and returns to the party, where he tells Nadia that she should call Slava and talk to him in front of everyone. Nadia obliges, and when she calls her fiancé's number, the director picks it up and explains the entire incident. She also apologizes for not letting Slava leave Palchik. Hearing all this, Nadia becomes upset and hangs up the phone. The scene then cuts to the game, where the Palchik team score 4 goals, securing their win and qualifying them for the finals. This overjoys Slava, and he finally celebrates with the team. Afterwards, he calls Nadia and again lies about his situation. However, it's revealed that she had trashed the wedding party after finding out that he had lied to her. So Nadia calmly tells him that she knows everything and switches off her phone. Slava is distraught, but nonetheless, he decides to train his team for the finals tomorrow. Meanwhile, a police officer finds out that many crates of expensive wine were stolen from a boat, and the surveillance footage is also gone. Slava then receives a call from Hilbuston, who summons him to the boat. Here we get to know that it was Hilbuston who stole the surveillance footage of that night. He shows Slava the tape of the kids unloading all the wine and blackmails him into losing the final match against his team. Hilbuston locks the surveillance disc inside a safe and keeps its key inside his pocket before sending Slava off. That night, the entire Palchik team gathers around and thinks of strategies for the finals. Just then, Slava remembers that Hilbuston always takes off his jacket if his team scores 3 goals. So he decides to let the kids concede 3 goals so that Slava can steal the safe key from his jacket. All the kids agree, and so the next day, when the game starts, they concede 3 easy goals. Unfortunately, Hilbuston doesn't take off his jacket, so Slava sends the school director to flirt with him. He eventually gives her his jacket, and the director slowly takes the key out and hands it over to Slava. After the first half, Hilbuston finally discovers that his key has been stolen. In the meantime, Slava sneaks onto the boat and successfully retrieves the disc from the safe. Now, with the problem out of the way, he calls the school director and tells her to make the kids play seriously. Then, Derek and Kara immediately get on the pitch and start to play properly, scoring 3 goals one after another. Meanwhile, Hilbuston reaches the boat and he, along with George, confronts Slava. Hilbuston then snatches the disc from him, while George attempts to keep him captive. However, Slava escapes and hangs onto the speedboat which Hilbuston tries to flee in. Suddenly, not paying attention to his surroundings, Hilbuston crashes the boat on the shore. Slava then quickly retrieves the disc and flees to the football pitch while being chased by Hilbuston. He then sneaks the disc inside the championship trophy, but soon after, Hilbuston figures it out. As he hurls himself towards the trophy, Nadia surprisingly pulls it away from him. It turns out that Nadia had come to Palchiki to verify whether or not what the school director said was true. She then supports Slava and hands him the trophy. At the same time, the Palchiki team scores the last goal, making them the champions of the football tournament. All the kids and Slava celebrate immensely over their huge achievement. In the final scene, we see Nadia and Slava finally get married. On the other hand, the kids have been put in a sports school where they prepare for their next championship matches.